Hello, once again. Welcome to mindFly. I have been posting a number of investigation reports and my analysis of those reports on my blog. On this video, we will analyze one of the accidents of a King Air C-90 which happened in a densely populated suburb of Mumbai, Ghatkopar, in June 2018. The final accident investigation report was released in December 2019, and after going through the accident report, I came up with a number of questions which were left unanswered. Therefore, I decided to investigate further and gather more evidence. I've prepared a detailed report from the technical and human factor aspect and submitted the same to the authorities, demanding for a reinvestigation of the case with a larger scope by means of a court of inquiry. I'll give you certain salient points of the report to help in better understanding. So this King Air was initially flying with the Uttar Pradesh government. In 2008, it met with an accident. It had structural damages, but the investigation report termed it as a minor incident. So therefore, the certificate of airworthiness was not terminated, it was suspended, kept in suspension. In 2018, the aircraft was made airworthy after having changed ownerships a couple of times, repair work done. So after almost 10 years, the aircraft flew on the first flight. On the outbound, the aircraft experienced some technical issues. They decided to come back, not to complete the mission. On the way back, just short of the airport, the aircraft crashed in a densely populated suburb. Luckily, the brave pilots were able to maneuver the aircraft away from buildings, and they landed, or rather crashed, met with an accident in a building site where fortunately the workers had gone for a break, the lunch break. So 4 people, including the pilots, were sadly killed in that accident, and 1 bystander. I gathered a lot of evidence from the media reports. You can also search the media reports for Ghatkopar accident, and they are live on the web. So a trained eye can pick a lot of things, a lot of peculiar things, can find differences. So that is what I have done in this report without having access to factual hard evidence. I have referred to International Civil Aviation Organization, the UN body, and their procedures manual. I have referred to the National Transport Safety Board, NTSB, the USA investigation agency, and their documents. For reference, the Australian investigators. I have referred to other King Air accidents around the globe, in India, and some of the documents provided by the engine manufacturer. So based on that, I would like to highlight certain points whereas the investigation report by the AAIB says that there was no pre-impact anomaly in the engines, which means the engines were developing thrust before impact. My report states the contrary, that there was loss of thrust to both the engines because both were damaged. The pictures provided in the investigation report by AAIB clearly shows damage to the engine blades, the compressor blades, due to overload, which they themselves have stated. Overload means when you load a motor, it heats up. So the heat causes basically burning or deforming, and ultimately leads to breakage of the blades which are producing thrust. So there was rapid loss of thrust to both the engines. So while the investigation report states there was overload, at the end they say there was no pre-impact anomaly. So through my photographic evidence and evidence from ICAO and other investigative authorities, the engine manufacturer has issued a service information letter wherein they have depicted what a turbine blade would look like and the reasons for overload. So I have used that to support my hypothesis. So now both engines lost thrust. The AAIB investigation report talks about the propeller blades. They said one blade was found about 50 meters away. I have picked up photographic evidence and shown the accident blades because the blades are absolutely straight. If the engines were producing thrust at impact, they would naturally be bent on impact. When a moving blade hits the ground, it will bend because the engine is still running. But these blades are absolutely straight. So possibly this is the reason why it is not, or it has been excluded from the final investigation report. I will show you the pictures of the blades which I have cited at the accident site. Another thing what the accident report says that the flaps which produce lift, which are on the wings, trailing edge of the wings, they move down for takeoff and landing. The investigation report says that they were retracted and the wheels were extended. Whereas I can show you at the accident site, the flaps are extended and the wheels are retracted. Even the CCTV footage shows the wheels are retracted, not extended. So there are contradictions. Cockpit voice recorder is the most critical evidence. Though the flight data recorder is not there on this aircraft, there was no requirement at that time. But through the cockpit voice recorder, we can separate frequencies and we can determine through spectral analysis the speed at which the propeller blades were moving. In this investigation, this tool, vital tool, was not used. While in other investigation reports in India, the same tool has been used to determine, and I have shown the factual evidence. So why was it excluded is another reason for to reinvestigate. The investigation report says that there was loss of thrust on one engine, differential thrust, which is there in the probable cause. And on the other hand, the crew have recorded on the CVR that there was loss of thrust on the remaining engine, which means there was loss of thrust on both the engines, contrary to what the accident investigation report states. The probable cause of the accident, as stated, was due to spatial disorientation, bank, weather. The pilots lost control. Whereas the spatial disorientation, what they have stated, occurs on account of acceleration of the aircraft, wherein you feel a pitch up motion and you push the stick down. So that never happened. The aircraft just stalled and went down, which could be due to the loss of thrust of both engines. In the aircraft, if it is flying very close to the minimum control speed, simply drops nose down, leads to an impact on the ground. So with all these things, I can conclusively say that one, there was loss of thrust to both the engines due to damage, and the investigative procedures were incorrect. There is a deliberate move, which is why certain critical evidence has been moved around or has not been produced. So in my letter to the Secretary, Ministry of Civil Aviation, India, I have expressed my shock, not because of the shortcomings of the report, which are there in every report around the world, but the fact that there was a deliberate attempt to manipulate facts and hide facts. So based on my limited information, I have produced more facts than the report has produced. So the final letter which I have written, the last para says that I would request your intervention to order a reinvestigation forthwith in the interest of aviation safety, and in order to have a larger scope, this would be a ripe case to be opened up with a court of inquiry rather than a closed door investigation. An open investigation will let persons like me to point out several of the causative factors, and the conclusions so reached will achieve the objective of preventing a larger catastrophe in the future. I hope I have given you a good brief and help you understand the situation, and I'm sure the authorities will do justice to this accident and order a reinvestigation.